In the year 1914, Memphis was the most dangerous city in America. It had a homicide rate of 72 per 100,000. Last year, Memphis was the most dangerous city in America, followed closely by Detroit, Baltimore. It had a murder rate of about 50. So it's actually slightly safer than it was in 1914. So Memphis, I don't know, because of its, why is Memphis for 100 years so dangerous? Is it because it's like, is it the top of the deep south and that's where everybody comes out of the Mississippi Delta to go to the city? I don't know. In 1914, it was 2/3 white, so it had to be white people killing each other. It's 2/3 black now, so whether it was predominantly black or white, Memphis is very violent. In fact, it was more violent back then when it was 2/3 white. But I always think about the Young Dolph case, and Hernandez-Govan will finally go on trial in July of 2025. I mean, Jesus, that guy's been out on bond forever. The supposed mastermind, the connector between Big Jook and the shooters, why he's even on bond. I mean, he clearly didn't tell on them, or, well, he didn't testify, and he didn't make a deal because he turned down a plea deal, because he's going to trial. So sounds like the Memphis criminal justice system, or the Tennessee or the Shelby County, doesn't work very well. And in thinking about which cities are dangerous, I mean, is it lack of police? Well, Memphis police chief just took a 12% pay cut. That's not good, but Memphis has about the same number of police per capita almost as Detroit, which is a pretty high number of police. But a lot of the cities with the highest number of police per capita, Detroit, Memphis, Philly, have very high violent crime. Now, the city with the highest, New York, is overall low crime, but it has problem spots. But Chicago, which overall is fairly high, but isn't, it's not that high overall. It's high, but it's not one of the highest. They're right there with New York of being heavily policed. So Memphis has plenty of police, but, how well do the police work? Well, back in January of 2021, you remember that Tyre Nichols, the black motorist, was unalived by the, the Scorpion Unit, the Memphis Crime Suppression Unit, and a lot of cities had those special units. In Detroit, they used to be called the Gang Squad, then they're called the Tiger Squad. I don't know if they have that anymore. The Tiger Squad was probably criminal. When you saw the Tiger Squad, you went inside, because they would just beat you up. Atlanta had the Red Dogs infamously run every drug dealer out of Georgia. Is that what it was for? But, so, Memphis, January 2021, the month Tyre Nichols lost his life, Memphis had about 22 murders, which would be about what it was normally having. By March, so the incident happened in January. In February, the officers were charged. By March, Memphis had 40 murders in March of 2021, which is the most it ever had. I don't think it's had that many in a month again. Remember, Memphis only has 600,000 people. If it was having 40 murders a month, that'd be almost 500 a year. That would give it a murder rate of, 85 or something, which is about the murder rate that Jackson, Mississippi has been having. Well, it's actually slightly higher. The most, I guess its murder rate finally calmed down. I'd have to check for 2024, but I think Memphis had the overall highest violent crime. Jackson might have still had the highest homicide rate. So, why is so much violence in these cities of the South? Well, when you had a whole culture based on the threat of violence, at least, to keep the black population in line, you create what? A culture of violence. So the cities in the Midwest that have the largest amount of people that immigrated from the South, now you could call them black people, and they are, but they're also people that came up from the South. And I can tell you from experience in Detroit, along with other cities, had not so much now, but up till fairly recently, white, slum, dangerous neighborhoods. Detroit had Cash Corridor, Delray, Brightmoor. Brightmoor doesn't really exist. Cash Corridor got turned into the one gentrified area of Detroit they call it Midtown now. Delray is still bad, but Delray is very depopulated. Baltimore has some white slum areas. Philly, that Kensington area, well, I mean, it's not an all-white neighborhood, but it has a lot of white people in an urban area and a very violent, high-crime section. So that's interesting. But those are people, those are the hillbillies from the South. So the culture of violence in the United States, as far as just regular people just shooting each other just because they bumped into each other at the store or they get into an argument, that comes from the South. And that's why you see the cities with the highest murder rate always in America are either in the South, and then as a lot of the people from the South moved to certain Midwestern cities, Detroit, parts of Chicago, St. Louis was another one, of course, New Orleans, it went on. So maybe that's the reason why, I don't know, Memphis seems like one of those cities, the devil's playground. All those rappers, they come out of Memphis, they don't seem to live there. They go live in Atlanta. I don't blame them. A lot more to do, and I mean, it's stuff that happens in Atlanta, but it all seems like you could kind of figure out what it was. Memphis is not safe, for real. So that's the backdrop of where Young Dolph came out of and where, unfortunately, he lost his life. I was just looking at some footage of his, in Makeda's Cookies there, where him and his brother were just in there like a regular day. His brother, who was his security, wasn't paying attention. He was turned. They were both facing the counter. And then you see the girl behind the counter turn, and everybody turns. And so those guys were cruising around and saw his wrapped truck. But they would only be comfortable doing. Would you do that in Atlanta? Maybe not. Would you do that in New York? Absolutely not. Would you do it in Chicago? Well, some of those Chicago people would do it. They'd probably get caught, but they don't seem like they care. But Memphis, I mean, they just about got away with it. I mean, a few different things would have went their way, because I think they were trying to bump off Cornelia Smith, the one who ended up confessing and testifying against Straight Drop. If they would have bumped him off, and then remember the white Mercedes, then Tennessee's criminal justice system is so, I can't figure out, so the case started to unravel from the white Mercedes, which was taken in a carjacking by this guy Trayon Ingram, and then Trayon Ingram ended up being charged with somebody else of jumping out of the white Mercedes, I think outside of a high school football game, and shooting it up. And they hit some women by accident. I think they unalived one of them. He doesn't seem to be locked up. I can't tell. Is Trayon Ingram locked up for that stuff now or what? Because he was charged with it, but I can't find him in the prison system. I don't know. So is Trayon Ingram the guy who was supposedly initially carjacked the white Mercedes? Is he in custody? Does anybody know? And what about the guy that was killed at the house where the white Mercedes was found, right there on Hernandez Govan's block? Like the day after the car was towed out. Wasn't a guy on that Bradley Street or something? Guy was gunned down. Probably somebody that was part of the conspiracy, and they bumped off as a weak link. Which makes me think it's definitely possible that Jook was gotten rid of by somebody in his own camp. I don't know that, but it's stranger things have happened. I mean, someone could have taken it upon themselves, not at Gotti's behest. Because remember, if you're under Gotti's umbrella and you feel like he's in danger of everything of the ship going down because of Big Jook, you get rid of Big Jook and you never tell Yo Gotti. Who knows? Whoever did the Big Jook job was more professional and probably is not from Memphis. They say it came out of Texas, the shooters. But looking at crime in Memphis, the fact that they have a lot of police, but as you can see from the Tyre Nichols case, you have, see, it's good to have police that are the same as the community. So in the case of Memphis, you have, black male police. So that's good, like Detroit. But there's a downside or a flip side potentially to that. So one thing J. Edgar Hoover did, not to promote J. Edgar Hoover, but he effectively set up the FBI for, he used it for bad purposes sometimes, but they had that rule of not putting agents in the city they were from. And one of the times they violated that rule was with Whitey Bulger, where he was put, or the agent John Connolly was put in Boston where he grew up, and he ended up being corrupted by Whitey Bulger, and they became their own crime family. You had a wing of the FBI in Boston that was basically part of the Whitey Bulger crew, but that's another story. So I wonder, when I did my stories on Dolph, there was some hinky stuff. The crime scene didn't seem properly controlled. Is that incompetence? There was a guy in a security outfit from the dollar store next door who looked mysteriously just like somebody that had been on stage with CMG, and there he is in a security outfit. Can't tell if it's exactly him, but he had like this crooked mouth thing with some missing teeth. It sure does look like him, and he conveniently died as well. So, and that dollar store shut down. I don't think there's cameras from that dollar store have been shown. I don't know. So the mystery of Dolph may be shrouded in the incompetence or the corruption of the Memphis police. And believe me when I tell you, police police don't make that much money. Did a story, I don't know why I didn't get views. You guys don't like hearing about police corruption. I guess it's not exciting enough, but look through my Detroit stories about the cop. I don't think they did anything to him. There were some people killed in Southwest Detroit, which is the Hispanic kind of little area. And a young girl, too, like a 14-year-old girl, and maybe her sister or her sister's boyfriend. So they end up convicting this guy, black male. He does, 8 years. They exonerate him. He gets millions of dollars. And the homicide detective that put him there ends up getting on a stand saying, well, yeah, I did frame him because I was scared, because our real suspect were CA Artel hitman in Detroit, and I have family in the part of Mexico where that CA Artel is, and I was afraid something was happening to my family. That's a hell of an excuse. I don't know if that cop was ever charged with anything. I'm gonna have to double back, but I have a story up about that. But yeah, so Memphis, the most dangerous city in America now. It was the most dangerous city in 1914. The other dangerous cities, Jacksonville, Florida, New Orleans, always. Now, for those of you interested in the obscura of homicide research, stumbled across I forgot I got my damn JSTOR subscription. I got to read more academic papers. Someone did an analysis, comparative analysis of homicides in Chicago and New Orleans between 1900 and 1920 or something. And it was interesting. They had kind of a similar homicide rate, but the nature of the causes of the homicides were a lot different. In New Orleans, a substantial portion of the homicides were the brother or husband of a woman killing her romantic partner. And there are a lot more general romantic partner killers, but there's a substantial amount of male relatives killing some other man about a woman. And then in Chicago, and then in New Orleans, almost all the homicide victims knew each other. So it was all personal. Not all, but mostly. In Chicago, a lot more stranger murder, what you would call just crime. And in New Orleans, the whites were quite violent, whereas in Chicago, by that time, you had less violence amongst the whites. You had organized crime, you did have some, but there was more homicides of like black robbers basically against people. So different things go on in different cities based on the culture in the time. Memphis, culture of violence for over 100 years. I can only imagine it's tied in with the legacy of being, I mean, wouldn't have Memphis been one of the capitals of the slave economy in terms of probably the cotton went up to Mississippi and came to Memphis and then distributed overland. I'm not expert on the cotton industry of that time, but something like that must have went on. Orange Mound, you might have heard Orange Mound Quet, where Hernandez Govan is from, ironically. Before Harlem was America's largest, or the capital of Black America starting in the 20s, it was considered to be Orange Mound, Memphis was the urban black capital of America. It had, a thriving black community, large for the time. Now it's just obviously not much there. So just some thoughts for you interested in the criminology and some statistics about the city of Memphis and as it pertains to the semi-solved but not totally solved murder of a lot of one of our favorite deceased rappers. There's so many dead rappers now that we all probably have a few. Unfortunately, our Prophet American dope. Memphis, stop the violence.